All right, so let's get into the 5 jazz standards that you need to learn in order to trigger improvisational mastery. First standard. Now, when I say trigger improvisational mastery, I'm talking about a 5-step alchemical transformation where you go from feeling like you're in a foreign country where you don't speak the language to literally being able to improvise with effortless mastery over any set of chord changes imaginable. I'm talking about classic bebop tunes all the way to the Holdsworthian intergalactics with your originals in between. Now, the reason I know this works is because I have personally guided well over 100 guitarists through this alchemical transformation. And I did this by showing them the Turbo Booster practice framework.
The Turbo Booster is great.
What you'll remember from this video, now you'll recall the Turbo Booster is a 3-step system for ingraining harmonic rhythms in your ear. And that right there is the alchemy that I'm talking about. It is the ability to hear harmony as it moves rhythmically from one chord change to the next, so that you can imply that harmonic movement in your improvisation. Now, here's a good illustration of exactly what I'm talking about. Notice the fretboard configuration is changing according to the harmonic movement. See, the common misconception that so many players buy into is the idea that there should be one scale that can fit over an entire chord progression. Now, this misconception is symptomatic of a deeper misunderstanding of how music actually works from a first principle level. For example, if we take a tune like Autumn Leaves, it's tempting to think that we can just play the G major scale over the first 4 bars of the tune because every chord in that first 4 bars is diatonic to the key of G. But you've probably applied this logic to the tune, and after doing so, you instantly thought to yourself, why does this sound like garbage? Or more specifically, why does this not sound like Autumn Leaves? And the answer is simple. It doesn't sound like Autumn Leaves because you're not expressing the harmonic rhythm of Autumn Leaves, where A minor gets 4 beats, D7 gets 4 beats, G major gets 4 beats, C major gets 4 beats. In order to actually play the tune, you need to distinguish each individual chord change from the one that precedes it and the one that comes after it, as opposed to trying to take the classic shortcut where it's like, oh, this one scale works for all the chord changes. Great, now I can play all my muscle memory licks that you're actually sick of playing and you don't want to play anymore, right? You see how your muscle memory licks are a result of you taking shortcuts, and now you're backed into a corner technically because your technique hasn't developed according to an expansive vocabulary. Now, you can distinguish each individual chord change very simply by prioritizing the triad in your melodic generation, like this. As opposed to this. I actually can't even play it that badly, unfortunately, as an example, but I think you get the point. Talking about triadic interchange through harmonic rhythms. So now the substance of improvisational fluency is starting to become clear. It's all about playing the right triads at the right times and almost forgetting about scales altogether, because when we're accurately playing harmonic rhythms, aka improvising coherently, we rarely have time to play anything beyond the triad. And when we're leveraging rhythm, we've got plenty to work with in order to create epic, iconic, and truly outstanding melodies in our improvisation. So with that said, it's becoming clear that the only thing you need to do in order to alchemically trigger improvisational mastery is simply master the skill of expressing harmonic rhythm. And to do that, you can follow this proven formula that I'm about to show you, where you simply apply the Turbo Booster practice framework to the following 5 jazz standards. In this process, you will exponentially increase your ability to express and hear harmonic rhythms by seeing different harmonic rhythms in context and applying the Turbo Booster to ingrain those harmonic rhythms. Now, there's a massive side effect from doing this practice, right? Obviously, you're going to unlock improvisational mastery, but the side effect is that you're going to understand how harmony actually works from a composer's perspective. And that's simply because you're going to be applying the Turbo Booster practice framework to iconic harmonic sequences, the ones that made it into the canon of jazz standards. The exposure to these iconic harmonic sequences is going to inform your compositional process down the line, because you're always going to have the reference point of these iconic harmonic sequences guiding your compositional process. It's about the precedent. It doesn't mean you're going to copy the things that you studied, but those are going to inform what you're doing, so you're not walking around as a total ignorant musician who doesn't understand the precedent that came before you. All right, so let's get into the 5 jazz standards that you need to learn in order to trigger improvisational mastery. First standard, just the two of us. This one is seriously the gateway. This is the entry point. If you have never played chord changes in your life, I guarantee 100% recommend that if you play just the two of us and learn it inside out, backwards, forward, upside down, isolate every individual chord change, you will have guaranteed your success, right? You will literally have guaranteed it. If you just use that tune, that 4-bar, only that part of the tune, because there's that other part, only this part of the tune, this 4 bars, inside out, backwards, forward, single note, and chords, it will have guaranteed your success, because you'll easily be able to overcome any challenges you face in steps 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond into the Coltrane intergalactics, the far deep cosmos. Here's the key that just the two of us teaches you. It teaches you that even when you're playing only triads, there are still certain situations where certain chord tones are more relevant than others. Specifically, on the E flat minor 7, the most important note of that entire chord change, actually potentially of the entire form on a macro scale, is the G flat. The G flat, the note that is a half step above the F. That is the key note. It's all about phrasing around the key note. Just the two of us teaches you key note all day. Listen for this right now. Chromatic approach and tetrachord. What did I just demonstrate? What you do after you've already laid out the triad, okay? The triad is the meat and potatoes, okay? Everything else is herbs and spices or vegetables. But you're not really going to appreciate your herbs and spices or vegetables unless you got those meat and potatoes, okay? So you see, I just added a nice side of green beans with butter when I played the chromatic approach into the note F, the 1 of the F minor chord where we're headed from that C chord. On that C, I played E flat, E natural, slammed up in that F. Nice 3-note chromatic. So I broke out of my triad with a nice little chromatic approach. I approached the 3rd of the 5 chord via the sharp 9, and then I had a chromatic little line. And then I also played the natural 9, the tetrachord on the F. That F minor is a longer duration chord. It gives us an opportunity to use more language. The 9th is that first obvious go-to. All right, so see what we learned about the key note on Just the Two of Us. Now you see why there's no mistaking that Just the Two of Us is the entry point. It's the shortest, most dense, and most representative standard of them all, I would say. So that's a huge hack. I mean, no one's keeping that a secret. Why try to keep anything a secret? I'm going to tell you these 5 tunes. I just told you number 1. Okay. Number 2, can you guess what it is? It is obviously the 12-bar complex blues, not just the normal blues, the complex blues. And you know what? To me, it's not complex. I just say the complex blues to reference that it's not the 1-4-5 blues. This is a blues with your passing diminish, your secondary dominance, and your turnarounds and all those extra things. It's also still short. It's also only 12 bars. And it's iconic. Because if you're playing, say, like a normal 12-bar blues where somebody is actually just playing 1-4-5, you could still use this same, you can use the complex shadow reality on top of the basic blues. So this is incredibly useful because as soon as you start playing the complex blues, then everyone's like, oh, that guy like is good. Like, let's hire him because he can play changes. And remember, all anyone cares about is how accurate you can play changes. They don't care how many chops you have, how many notes you can play. They only care about how accurately you can play changes. So you start playing your like blues superimpositions over the 1-4-5s and they're like, hey man, can you teach me how to do that? All right, so you want me to play a chorus of blues? Let's play something. 3, 4. Actually, this is the delay. Dude, I think I have to leave that entire take in. For a lot of you watching that, you probably were thinking of it like a car accident waiting to happen. That's exactly what you have to be like. Always ready to die at all times. And that's the beauty of music. If you die, you're never dead. Dude. That's why we talk about alchemy. Like, I'm not kidding. You know, I'm not kidding, dude. 21st century alchemy, dude. On the fretboard wizardry, dude. That firebolt level, you know? So, yeah. You know, you start playing chords, you start playing passing diminish, you start playing shadow realities, you start playing fat shapes, you start playing melodies on top of those fat shapes. You know what I mean? Like, you can get the job done. You got the tools, right? You can play gospel at church all the way to, like, straight up indulgent jazz. You know what I mean? But I find this whole process that we're talking about, this whole mentality of practice that we're doing here, is really not about being indulgent. Like, don't be indulgent, right? Be sparing, you know? Be sparing with everything. Everything goes a lot farther when you're sparing. If you leave some to spare, you got more to use later. That's the always, right? Always save some more for later. So don't indulge now, because then you won't have anything later. That discipline, that balance, right? That's what's going on here. So you're starting to see the alchemy of jazz standards is just kind of like staying on balance, right? Keeping the form, keeping the concentration in spite of mistakes. You will make mistakes. The alchemy is to understand that there are no mistakes. When you actually understand that, you are really a true master. It's that simple. The day that you wake up realizing there's no mistakes, that is officially your training is complete. And you can go on to do great things, because there is this level of, it's just training, like get your training done and then go and change the world with it. A lot of people fail to realize that there is an actual threshold of fluency. Always back to the English analogy, right? Threshold of fluency. There's a moment where you're fluent in English, and then you can go and write and compose and make stories and converse improvisationally and freely. But there is that threshold of fluency that you cross, and then you start to feel confident and it's natural. That's exactly what music's like. It's just about feeling confident and natural as you do when you speak English. So be aware of that threshold, right? You can compare it to the way you speak English. Once you can play music as effortlessly as you can speak English, then you've crossed the threshold. That's the training. And if you do it properly and you have good guidance and you just follow basic directions, my roadmap and all the resources I have, my 3 classes a week, you follow that basic stuff, you will have your training done in less than 6 months. Absolutely. Less than 6 months, 100%, definitely less than 6 months. More like 3 to 4 months. So that's not a very long time, you know, just to become an absolute wizard mastery. And the whole thing is like, stop putting the whole mastery thing on a pedestal, right? It's not that hard. I'm telling you, it's not that hard to achieve comprehensive musical fluency. It's not that hard to build an impressive technique around basic musical vocabulary execution, right? Like speaking the language of music freely and effortlessly requires whatever technique it requires. Right? That's another level, is like, you want to master technique. Stop trying to get more technique. All you need to do is focus on creating new vocabulary. You know, using the tools, like using the triad configurations in all the different ways you can, applying rhythm to those, and then just extrapolating with your rhythmic imagination now that you have the 6 triad configurations through all these tunes. And that brings me to the turbo booster, right? So like, I'm not going to get super deep in the turbo booster specifically. You know about it from the previous video. If you want to get crystal clear on the turbo booster, link in the description to book your intro package with me. That's the one-on-one lesson with me that's recorded and handcrafted to your real-time specifications, where we're referencing material from the course library, right? I'm giving you whatever lessons you need to get that foundation of practice going. Get all the tools you need to play triadic voice leading, even fat shapes. We get into fat shapes in that intro package. So it goes balls deep. So you can book that. That's a link in the description. And I'll show you exactly what the turbo booster is. I'll show you exactly how to practice, right? And we'll just start with just the 2 of us. We will literally lay that cement foundation of comprehensive, inevitable mastery. Because I said, once you understand everything there is to know about just the 2 of us, you have guaranteed your success. And we can literally guarantee your success in the first intro package you can take with me, the one-on-one handcrafted lesson to your real-time specifications. Link in the description. Book it right in. All right, so what's after the blues? Rhythm changes, right? Why rhythm changes? Because it's long now. Now we've entered into long realms. We're welcome to where it gets hard now. It's not the individual little chord changes that's hard. It's the forms, the long forms that are hard. And you're going to see that's the theme for the rest of this whole thing. It's the forms. I'm going to play a chorus of rhythm changes, no edits, right here. If I fall on my face, you're going to watch me do it, because I'm literally ready to die on camera right here, right? That's the thing. You got to be willing to die when you go for it. That's the only way you're going to expand your vocabulary, is if you don't stay in your comfort zone. So let's do it. Let's kick it. A full chorus of rhythm changes. The focus on this AAB is legendary, right? Notice how the first 2 A's are not the same, right? Notice how the second A and the last A are the same, but the first A is different. Notice that. That is huge. Focus on that, and I'll be fine. That's the secret. That's the alchemy, right? Got to just remember that second A with that little resolution on the last 2 bars. Instead of doing another 1-6-2-5, it just does a 1-5-1, and it does that on the last A. That's the key to the phrasing. That's the focus right there. You focus on those tiny little details, and then you'll keep track of everything. Your concentration needs to be in the right spot. That's what it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Full-blown Charlie Parker to literally just nail that specificity. That kept my concentration. The concentration, the focus, right? Entering the flow state systematically. That's the alchemy of jazz, son. It's not about like being perfect. It's about being in the flow state legitimately, systematically. That is the #1 skill that you're cultivating as what you might think of as a jazz musician, but on a deeper level, it's just a fluent musician, period. It just so happens that jazz musicians are kind of the only ones who really crack the code on modern day fluency, although the ancient classicals, Baroque, Romantic, Renaissance, all those guys, they were master improvisers too. So improviser and musical fluency, it's always been that way, right? Like first principle, improvisation, composition, the same thing, blah, blah, blah. It's like ancient basics, right? Non-duality. All right, so what's after rhythm changes? Blue and green. Jazz Fluency 8, the most recent module, is on blue and green. Fat Shape City on that one. Blue and green is the ultimate study of chord mastery. You can master blue and green with chords because you have to play chords. 10-bar ballad with whole notes in the melody, essentially. If you can play that fat, juicy melody, man, like you literally are a chord wizard. You know, you have to spend some time unpacking that knowledge, but just to plug in fat shapes on blue and green, it's done. It's over. You're a chord wizard. You're a genius. Very few people have even ever freaking done that. That's why it's Jazz Fluency 8. And by few people, I should say few guitar players have reached Jazz Fluency 8 where they're playing fat-shaped chord melody on blue and green. Let alone the Pat Martino deep blues. Because he plays blue and green, but he's not really playing the chords. Joey DiFrancesco is. So just saying. The chord thing is monumentally open there. All right, so what's number 5? Falling Grace, dude. Falling Grace. You thought I was going to say Giant Steps? You thought I was going to say Satellite? It's Falling Grace. Number 5 is Falling Grace, dude. Jazz, dude, I'm straight up trying to almost fail, but not fail. I don't want to fail. I'm putting myself in situations where I might fail, and I'm not afraid to go there. And I'm also not afraid to sound like bad sometimes, because I understand a bigger vision, you know, for my musicianship. The small vision is just to try to sound perfect right here, right now. The big vision is try to cultivate a mentality that allows you to sound good when it counts 100% of the time. So when it counts would be like on a gig or on a recording session, right? That's when it counts. Imagine sounding good, and not just good, actually, sounding masterful every time it counts, right? On a gig or on a recording. Every single recording of you is like unequivocal mastery. That's what you're trying to do. And you do that by practicing your jazz tunes. You're practicing your Turbo Booster practice framework through the jazz tunes. And if you can make it all the way to number 5 and you can follow that roadmap, it's guaranteed. It is literally a guaranteed fact. I can literally guarantee you, if you make it through all 5 with Turbo Booster, you will be better than 99.963% of guitarists. I swear to you, literally, mentally. You will understand all theory, you will understand all harmony, and you will have cultivated the most important muscle of them all, which is the creative muscle. You will understand how to generate melody in all the situations where you need to. That's why Falling Grace is the final boss. Final boss, dude, that is a sickly, disgustingly difficult tune, dude. Try to freaking wrap your head around that. That's why it forces the triads. It's just forcing the triads. You do not have a choice. You have to play them. It's too hard not to. That's the full circle realization. You have to get all the way to number 5 before you can realize that. Truthfully, Because you'll start to kind of realize that you can take my word for it, but that's not enough. You have to experience it for yourself, and you will after those 5 tunes, guaranteed. So that's why it only takes less than 6 months. People who actually do my assignments in real time, man, they're finishing so fast that I need to like actually raise my prices. Literally! But that's also because I've been offering the intro package. So even before they come into the school, they already do the intro package and they're already like psycho geniuses. So it makes sense that like after you're a psycho genius, you come into the school and you're like done in 2 to 3 months, you know. About 6 months ago, I started doing the intro packages, but just offering those to people who reach out on Instagram. Now I'm just publicly stating, yeah, we got the intro package, one-time payment instead of a recurring thing. And like I said, that's the thing that's going to literally guarantee that you'll succeed to get to the 5th tune and completely unlock improvisational mastery at the highest level. It starts with that intro where we just do that one-on-one, handcrafted to your real-time specification lessons. Link in the description to book that. Also, if you haven't picked up Fretboard Mastery, I don't even know how that's possible. So many people have Fretboard Mastery, dude. Like, so many, like, way more than I thought. I think in the last video I said like 275 people have it. It's over 1,000 now. Over a freaking 1,000 of you got Intro to Fretboard Mastery, dude. Bang! Dude, that is sick. That is actually sick, because the whole thing is I want you guys to get a short, little, quick win with that. Literally get fingering 1. Right? That's the hardest one of them all. Fingering 1 is the hard, that's why it's number 1. It's the hardest one of them all. Just get that one, major and minor, then fingering 2 is so much easier. See how it's not range optimized though. It's easier, but you're trading off the range. So much easier. And then get fingering 3, right? And then the twist on fingering 3 is that's now when you're thinking about your 5 chord, right? You're thinking about that C. So you're thinking about that second inversion, because classic fingering 3 is associated with the second inversion. That's an Easter egg I didn't really drop in that intro to Fretboard Mastery, but I actually think I said it in my last YouTube video. But the classic combo would be like, you know, a root position 1 chord to a second inversion 5 chord, like this kind of sound. You know what I'm saying? Just get those 3. Be able to play some 5-1, that's all. Then hit me up. That's when you want to hit me up for the one-on-one intro package, okay? Just those 3 fingerings, get those, and you'll have everything you need to actually lay that turbo booster practice framework. It's so much easier when you understand that Fretboard Mastery full range logic. Everything is so much easier. That's why I did it. I'm not doing anything by accident. It's all very deliberate. All right, so that's a long video, I think. That was probably my most rambling video in a while, but this was a long time, very important video coming. So just sum it up, right? It's number 1, just the 2 of us. Number 2, blues. Number 3, rhythm changes. Number 4, blue and green. Number 5, falling grace. That is it. That is the formula for mastery. The alchemical transformation is guaranteed. All you have to start with is just the 2 of us and understand the turbo booster practice framework on just the 2 of us. That's it. You've guaranteed success at that point. It's done. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. All you have to do is learn the turbo booster on just the 2 of us. You will become a master. You will get the equivalent of a master's degree in music, a master's degree in jazz performance. You'll have the equivalent of that knowledge and skill in less than 6 months doing this. I know that sounds crazy. It's not crazy. The point is, a music university is just wasting a whole bunch of time and money, and they're trying to make it more complicated and confusing. It's not a hard thing. You're putting this on a pedestal when it's so much fucking easier than the English language, okay? That's what you don't understand. That's what they don't want you to know. They want you to spend $200,000. Yep, they want you to go in debt, right? I don't. I want to give you mastery in less than 6 months. And you don't have to go in debt to get it. So, talk to you soon. Kid!